Super Bowl MVP, is expected to retire. We've known he's played through knee injuries the last couple of years. It's bothered him. It's slowed him down. It hampered him. Think back to last season when it was tough for Julian Edelman to get on the football field. And we also saw how active New England was in free agency when it went out and signed a slew of tight ends and wide receivers. It knew the reality of Julian Edelman's situation. And obviously now, 17 or so days prior to the NFL draft, where the Patriots probably will be seeking even more help at the position, really it's the end of an era in New England. A player who symbolized the toughness of a city now is expected to walk away from the game that he made a huge mark on. And he never made a bigger mark than he did in the postseason. If we go through Julian Edelman's career, you think back to the catch that he made against the Atlanta Falcons, which was just about as tough a catch as any we've seen in Super Bowl history outside of maybe David Tyree. You think back to other catches he made against the Seattle Seahawks, sorry Mina, in the Super Bowl. There have been so many catches that he's made so far along the way, and he became a model of what you're looking for at that slot receiver. He and Tom Brady were simpatico all the time. They read each other's minds. Again, a tremendous career. There will be a debate as to whether or not he belongs in Canton in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He does to me. He was that kind of player who left that kind of mark. And I remember having been a voter in other years where they say, can you write the history of the game without this player? And Julian Edelman's mark on the game was instrumental. Again, three Super Bowl wins, 1 Super Bowl MVP, some of the more memorable postseason catches that we've seen. Julian Edelman now expected to retire from the NFL.
Yeah, Adam, I'm sure Tom Brady will be weighing in soon on this. Julian Edelman, though, beloved by Patriots fans. Congratulations as he is expected to retire. Let's get to some more news about the Browns. Adam, what's going on with Jadeveon Clowney and this Cleveland team?
Well, it's a situation here, Laura, where essentially these two sides have had negotiations and talks during the offseason. And Jadeveon Clowney recently visited Cleveland, and as Diana Rossini reported earlier today, the two sides are talking deal once again. He is expected to visit again, which will be a second straight visit here. The only two places he's known to have visited. There is said to be some interest from some other teams, but Cleveland knows it can sign Clowney and match him opposite of Myles Garrett. And people would not be able to focus in on Clowney with as consumed as they would be with Garrett. And so by playing in Cleveland, it could be something that would help elevate Clowney's career. He struggled with injuries, but maybe he's ready to play and produce at a high level again.
Yeah, Adam, to your point, if you look across the division, T.J. Watt has led that formidable unit of Bud Dupree, Stephon Tuitt, and Cameron Hayward. Garrett has been carrying more than enough weight just by himself as he continues to try to make something happen there in Cleveland, totaling nearly twice as many sacks as any other Browns player in the last 2 seasons. And while Garrett has faced the 3rd highest rate of double teams on the edge in that span, Clowney ranks right behind him with a nearly identical rate. Could be a lot of fun to put these two together. So, Marcus, what do you think about the fit? Clowney with the Browns. How does it work for you?
Damn, Els, I don't be throwing all the stats out there, but when I get a good one, you take it.
Oh,
I wanted
sorry.
to say Clowney get the double teams.
Well, you
it's
can
all
say
good.
it.
I'm just playing. Listen. I think this is a phenomenal move for the Cleveland Browns and Jadeveon Clowney because of his talent and how it lends itself. Look at the examples, y'all. We got Aaron Donald, who Leonard Floyd went and paired up with. We saw Leonard Floyd get paid. We see these type of guys. You just mentioned T.J. Watt. There's benefits to playing with guys like that. I benefited from playing next to DeMarcus Ware when we were in Dallas. This is what Jadeveon Clowney needs, because the question for him has always been the sack totals. He's been a really good football player, people. He's done a tremendous job playing the defensive end position, but we get enamored with those high sack numbers, and we expect first overall picks to be able to do that, and his athleticism and build should lend itself to that. With that being said, he can move. He's fast off the ball. He can take pressure off of Myles Garrett with both of those guys being double teamed at a very high rate. This would be a home run for the Cleveland Browns, and it would ascend them to number 1 in the division, I believe, if they get it done.
I love this for the Browns, too. Like, it was no mystery going into this offseason what Cleveland needed to address: pass defense. They finished 25th in pass defense efficiency last season, and they addressed the back end of that in free agency. John Johnson and Troy Hill signing those defensive backs from the Rams. That was one of my favorite moves, combined moves in the offseason with the value they got. But pass defense, of course, also includes the pass rush. And what we saw last year was that Olivier Vernon, when he was off the field, the Cleveland pass rush really suffered. Sack rate cut in half. You saw, I think that was a sneaky, impactful absence down the stretch headed into the postseason. And Myles Garrett, as terrifying as he is, he does need another player on that defensive line who can detract from double teams and make his life a little bit easier. The idea of having Clowney as a movable chess piece who they can utilize both on the outside and inside, get standing up. I love that for Cleveland, a team that, frankly, when you start looking across this AFC North at the various depth charts, they've got the best roster in the division, and I don't think it's particularly close at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a luxury to get someone this good, to get someone a number 1 overall pick, Jadeveon Clowney, to go with Myles Garrett. I think what you just said made me think about this. Think about the offensive lines. We've talked about Cincinnati. Maybe needs to go Penei Sewell at 5 overall. We know their offensive line wasn't very good. The Pittsburgh Steelers lost their left tackle in free agency. The Baltimore Ravens might have to trade their right tackle, Orlando Brown Jr. We have some offensive lines, the AFC North, that could be in flux. This is very smart by Cleveland. Really another really smart move by Cleveland. Now you have these bookend pass rushers that you can move around. You can kick Clowney inside. You can kick Garrett inside. You can play them both standing up like you were saying. So this is a really smart move. It was their biggest need. When you talk about team needs for the draft, it was pass rusher. That was their biggest need. Now they have the flexibility to go look at maybe linebacker, maybe getting depth at corners. I think they could use a defensive tackle. And with the number 26th overall pick now, Cleveland can go best player available, especially on defense. They don't have a lot of what you would call quote-unquote needs, so that gives them a ton of fluidity in the first round of this draft class.
Marcus, since I stole your stat really fast, Cleveland a sneaky Super Bowl team potentially?
Oh yeah, dark horse Super Bowl team. And I know it's going. Look, I've been as critical on Cleveland because of Baker Mayfield as much as anybody. But if he takes another step forward, y'all, and this team stays healthy. Health was a big issue for them last year. And maybe I didn't talk about it enough, but they were decimated at times defensively and offensively. They lost some offensive line, dealt with COVID. So this is already a good football team. Now you adding more playmakers. And to Mina's point, you add two guys on the back end. If you get Jadeveon Clowney and this group stays healthy, Grant Delpit will be back. This could be dark horse guys out of the AFC, y'all. I'm not playing.
What's the latest on the medical side for cornerback Caleb Farley? One person here says he's the best corner in the draft. Also coming later, we'll tell you why the Packers made the wrong gamble and why it could cost them Aaron Rodgers. Plus, the reason Jerry Jones needs to put his Trader Jerry hat back on, he's got 10 picks. Dallas needs to make an impact. You see it right there, Marcus Spears and Mina Kimes. And that's also Matt Miller. He's going to be in that wall, I promise. Adam Schefter is joining us later on as well. Sam Darnold, guys, let's begin there. And he's now in Carolina, not just in his mind. Shout out to James Taylor for those who listen. Darnold was introduced today by the Panthers as he begins a journey to revive his young career. You see him arriving there ahead of a press conference with head coach Matt Rule. Both Rule and Darnold spoke, and here's some of what they said.
Obviously, getting drafted as high as I did, my expectations were to go in there, play 20 years, and win Super Bowls, and that was the dream going in there. And but obviously, it didn't work out. But now, coming in as a Carolina Panther, I'm very excited for this opportunity, and just to come in, with a fresh start, and just excited to get going.
There was a report right after the trade that you picked up Sam's fifth-year option. Can you just tell us if you did, and if so, was that kind of a business decision, or does that speak to your faith in his ability?
We have not done anything with that yet. Quite honest, we need another really strong draft. So at the 8th position, we'll be flexible. We'll look to take the best player available. We'll continue to look at quarterbacks. I've been impressed going around and watching some of these guys throw. So we'll look at anything and everything. There is no, we're not locked into everything.
Adam Schefter, we start with you. You think the Panthers are done at that QB position yet?
Well, you heard Matt Rule himself there, Laura, say, we're not done at quarterback. We would look at quarterback. And so it doesn't mean that they will go quarterback at the 8th overall pick, because acquiring Sam Darnold gives them flexibility. If the quarterback that they want is there, I think they'll strongly consider it. And if not, they've got no problem going in another direction. But they did not want to sit around and wait until the draft to come without making a move at the quarterback position when they had a chance to go get a guy like Sam Darnold. Keep in mind, Matt Rule interviewed for the Jets job. He had done work on Sam Darnold. Scott Fitterer, the Panthers GM, had interviewed for the Jets job. He had done work on Sam Darnold. They knew what they were getting, and they wanted to lock that in, and then from there, they could go best player available, whether that's a quarterback or whether that's somebody to help some other position.
Yeah, it's important context, and to your point, Adam, kind of a win-win there for the Panthers either way. Everyone needs quarterback depth no matter what. So let's get these guys' opinion on this as we welcome Marcus, Mina, and Matt back to the show here. Marcus, if a quarterback is there at that 8th pick, should they take him?
If it's Justin Fields, hell yeah. And not only create competition, but you also see where you go with Sam Darnold. I love Matt Rule, no-nonsense approach. Tepper, the owner of the Carolina Panthers, the same way. And obviously we thinking Joe Brady is going to be the catalyst to get him. But Joe Brady would love to have Justin Fields as well. Trust me, y'all, you can't have too much of an embarrassment at riches at the quarterback spot, especially from a talent standpoint. Now, obviously, you got to get these guys to play at the high level. Justin Fields only, though. If he's not available, the Panthers should draft offensive line, surround Sam Darnold, give him that confidence that he's their guy, and move forward in that direction. So it'll be interesting to see. If Justin Fields is there at 8, I'm going to be very disappointed in the draft, y'all, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. If Justin Fields is there, it's a different conversation. Based on where I had Sam Darnold ranked before the 2018 NFL draft, I would actually have Justin Fields ahead of him. So I'm with you there, Marcus. But I think the key here is the offensive line. They drafted Greg Little out of Ole Miss in 2019 in the 2nd round. He hasn't really panned out. So left tackle is a huge need. What do we keep saying about teams like the Cincinnati Bengals? You have to protect your young quarterback. Part of Sam Darnold's problems with the New York Jets was a lack of protection, among other things. So I think if you are this team, you're sitting here at 8, this could be the first offensive tackle off the board as Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater from Northwestern is there. Both have been battle-tested, coming out of big programs. Both players opted out this past year, but I think they are exceptional talents. Penei Sewell, the number 4 overall player on my big board this year. I mean, this is a plug-and-play improvement over what they've had at the left tackle position.
Yeah, I mean, left tackle hasn't just been an issue for Carolina recently. That's been a revolving door with this organization for nearly a decade. The last left tackle to start in back-to-back seasons for the Panthers was Jordan Gross. That was back in 2013. I have to think Carolina is looking at last year's draft, where you've got teams like Cleveland or Tampa Bay that had a lot of success with rookie tackles, and thought, well, maybe we can do the same thing. Obviously, if Sewell's there, it's a no-brainer for them. But Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern, look, his tape might not be as sexy as like a Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase, but if you want sexy, watch him against Chase Young a couple years ago. And that's you'll get pretty excited about that if you're a Panthers fan, because he's about as polished a prospect as he gets. I don't think he has the upside of a Sewell, but he is incredibly athletic. He is plug and play. I think for them, having the ability to address the position that's been such an issue with this team for so long would be a wise move, regardless of whether Sam Darnold is the long-term future of the organization, because a left tackle can be the future for a very long time.
And Mina, that's the great point, right? They could go left tackle, or they could do what Marcus is saying and go Justin Fields. And if they decide to go Justin Fields, let's keep in mind, Sam Darnold has that 5th-year option. They don't know whether they want to commit to him long-term. If you hit on a rookie quarterback these days and get that rookie quarterback contract, you set up your franchise financially to make a lot of moves that it ordinarily could not. See the Seattle Seahawks with Russell Wilson on his rookie contract. And so this is the dilemma that the Panthers will wrestle with in the next 17 days and all the way up to their pick in the 1st round.
Yeah, but the one interesting thing, guys, that I do want to point out in all this is that the dilemma of where Sam Darnold will be, at least for now, has been alleviated. You could hear the relief in his voice today, even as he was talking. And listen, we know this may be one of his last best chance, but good for Sam Darnold and good for the Panthers giving him another shot. Hey, one of the most important events related to the NFL draft was completed just a few days ago, and this likely isn't the last you'll hear of it as we get closer to the end of the month. I'm talking about medical checks in Indy, where top prospects were examined by 64 medical personnel. The team doctor and head athletic trainer from all 32 NFL teams, players with medical red flags, were also checked out. So, Adam, why was this so important?
Well, Laura, it was so important because there was no combine this year. And people know the combine as drills and times and lifting. But it's really about the medical in Indianapolis. And so there are 125 prospects that went to Indianapolis last week for medical rechecks. And I've spoken to front office executives who have flat out said they would prefer not to draft a player that they don't have extensive medical checks on. So the players that went back there last week, I think, have something of an advantage. And there's a record for GMs and executives to look at when they're making a decision about whether or not to draft them going forward. And so that's a huge deal that these teams are sifting through. And think about all the times that we're at the combine where something leaks out about a top prospect's shoulder or knee or heart. Something comes out. That has not happened yet this year because there was no combine in February. But those little factoids will leak out here in the days to come.
Yeah, and I think one of those important players, Adam, Zach Wilson, obviously getting the shoulder checked out, but Caleb Farley, the corner from Virginia Tech, who before the season, when we start compiling our notes about who are the top players for the 2021 NFL draft, I had multiple front office people say Caleb Farley is the best corner for next year. Now, he opted out this past year when given that option, but he is one of the most physically gifted corners in this class. Adam was the person who broke the news about the microdiscectomy. Caleb Farley has said he's okay. His agent, Drew Rosenhaus, has said he's okay. But NFL teams will have to check that for themselves. And that is the huge key coming out of this, is a player who could be on the board as early as number 10 for the Dallas Cowboys, could see his name slip to where maybe it's later Thursday night when he finally is drafted. But I think Caleb Farley is probably the most intriguing name until we get some of those medical leaks, at least, of a person who we know needed to get that evaluation so teams can decide what his immediate and long-term health is really going to look like.
Someone may end up getting a steal there. Caleb Farley, by the way, has said he is the best cornerback in this draft. Some more news for you today. Former Chiefs assistant coach Britt Reed, the son of Andy Reid, has been charged with felony driving while intoxicated after a crash this past February that left a 5-year-old girl critically injured. Prosecutors say Reid was driving just under 84 miles per hour and had a blood alcohol level of 0.113 just after the crash over the weekend. Congrats to him, by the way. Let's get to some other top stories on this Monday with Adam Schefter. Adam, couple extremely important pro days this week.
Well, this is what this week is all about, Laura. In the days leading up to the NFL draft, Justin Fields will hold another pro day at Ohio State later this week that the 49ers, amongst others, are expected to attend, followed up by the Trey Lance pro day on Monday at North Dakota State. And so it'll be a chance for the 49ers and other teams to get a look at the quarterbacks that will be in contention for the number 3 pick, as well as all the other teams that have a quarterback need. And one other note, Laura, a short time ago, the Buccaneers agreed to a 1-year deal with former Bengals running back Giovanni Bernard. Call it the Tom Brady effect, because that's what it is.
Yeah, Mina just said in a group text that that's the final piece for the Buccaneers. So there you go. How about this? What will the Cowboys do with the 10th pick in the draft, guys? Don't rule out the possibility they could trade up for a player Jerry Jones has fallen in love with. Florida tight end Kyle Pitts, by chance. But for the Cowboys, who need depth, especially on defense, their other picks matter. They have 10 total picks this year. Cowboys reporter Todd Archer is joining us now. Todd, what do you think Jerry Jones and the Cowboys should do in the draft?
This might sound counterproductive to some, but the Cowboys need trader Jerry to make an appearance during the draft. No, not to move up from number 10 overall in the first round to take Kyle Pitts, but to add as much quality as possible. The Cowboys in free agency took a quantity approach, signing 10 players. The draft, that has to be about quality. Only the Eagles have more selections than the Cowboys' 10. They have 4 picks inside the top 100, 6 inside the top 150. Jerry Jones has a long history of being a wheeler and dealer. He's made 68 draft day trades since 1989. Last year, the Cowboys targeted Tyler Biadasz in the 4th round. They gave up 2 fifth-rounders to go get him. This year, Biadasz projects to be their starting center. Trader Jerry doesn't need to be wild Jerry, but he can be precise Jerry.
Yeah, Todd, I think the problem is trying to tell Jerry himself not to be wild Jerry, right, Marcus? What do you think? Trader Jerry here? What would you do if you're Jerry Jones?
Wild Jerry from his yacht. If being wild get me all of that, let me get it, man. Listen, this is one of the things that's the conundrum. Obviously, we have the Kyle Pitts entering this conversation, and if he's there at 10, you take him. But it's 2 scenarios for me, y'all, and it's really not that complicated. At 10, whether you feel like the offensive line needs to be fortified and you need to start preparing to add depth to that with a guy that can play and really play multiple positions. If you feel like that Slater is there or Darius Shaw, if you have guys that you feel like can come in, plug and play, and make you marketably better up front, you do that. We watch that offensive line. Secondly, if the defense is going to be the focus, I'm saying take the corner. Either Surtain, Farley, based on medical, and just go opposite of Diggs and start creating this 4-3 defense for Dan Quinn that he's trying to implement. I think this defense will be better. This defense will be better because of scheme. They had no idea what they were doing last year, y'all. And it ain't making excuses for the Cowboys. I've seen guys that doesn't fit in schemes not be the type of player that they should be and then go elsewhere and end up being Pro Bowlers and going and potentially all pros. So that matters. But those are the 2 scenarios for me. Get Kyle Pitts out of your damn mind. Don't trade up to go get him.
I was the one that said it this time. Matt.
Yeah, I agree with Marcus with what he's saying here. And I do think one thing that we have to remember, though, this is an offensive-minded team. Jerry Jones wants to score points. He wants to sell tickets. He wants to be on SportsCenter. They want to score points in Dallas. And last year, yes, for 2 months, everyone had told me, put in your mock draft, go defense for Dallas. They drafted CeeDee Lamb because he was still on the board. So I think that is something we have to remember. I'm not going to go full Kyle Pitts on you guys today, but I do think one of the offensive linemen, if Penei Sewell from Oregon, Rashawn Slater from Northwestern, if either player is there, they have to be considered at 10. And one more note that I would throw in. They do need defense. There's not a pass rusher this year who's a value at 10 overall. There's corner, might even be a little bit of a stretch at 10 overall.
Yeah.
This is not a great defensive draft. I have one player ranked in my top 10. That's Micah Parsons from Penn State at linebacker, which is maybe a position they're actually kind of okay at. So that is the other element of this is you're probably reaching if you go defense at 10.
Yeah, it's tricky because on one hand, when you say the Dallas Cowboys should go offense in the 1st round, it's almost like you're out of bread and milk and eggs and you go to the grocery store and you just come back with a cake. Like, you don't need cake. You really are like, you need to make a whole meal on defense. But it made sense in my mind. But what Matt said about the board and sort of where the different players are slotted right now and the sort of distribution of talent, it does make sense that Dallas wouldn't want to go defense at number 10, although I do think Patrick Surtain might be worth it. To me, it might actually be astute for Trader Jerry to trade down from pick 10, depending on who wants that, take a Christian Barmore, and then potentially add corner a little bit later, especially if, as we all assume, Dan Quinn's going to come in and institute that 4-3, play more cover 3 in the back. Then you would love to have a 3-tech and a cornerback who can play zone. So I think Trader Jerry's going to have to get together with Dan Quinn and figure out who do we actually need on this team in the present, because this is a team that is trying to win now.
Marcus, as Mina was throwing that out there, trading back for the Cowboys, you were saying you liked it. Why is that?
Because that's the best case scenario. Look, y'all, if the caveat is if they haven't identified an offensive lineman that's plug and play. Y'all know I'm there with the Dallas Cowboys. I think that is pressing, right? And then defensively, as y'all talked about, the value of these guys up at 10 is just hard. It's potentially a reach. Trading down and you can get the D tackle and a corner and those guys outplay their draft position, that is the dream scenario. So that's why when Mina said that I was shaking my head because it makes a ton of sense when we're not looking at like game-changing, draft-defining defenders in this draft.
Yeah, you know who is game-changing is Kyle Pitts, and I think it's going to be really tempting for Jerry Jones to have to avoid. He's going to be like, let me just trade up, let me get this guy, and then everyone else is going to have to talk him out of it. All right, we've got some breaking news here on NFL Live. Let's get Adam Schefter in here. Adam, what's going on?
All right, Laura, moments ago, the Patriot wide receiver Julian Edelman's name showed up on today's transaction wire as having his contract terminated. However, our Mike Reese is reporting that that is a technicality. And the more significant issue is that Julian Edelman is expected to retire. And so the Patriots released him from his contract today, but they did so with the understanding that Julian Edelman now would be retiring from football. And if so, it would cap an incredible career for a guy that single-handedly made one of the more memorable catches in Super Bowl history, came out of college, and basically went from a college quarterback to somebody who got the most out of his career, who became an ideal slot receiver, who became a weapon that Tom Brady depended upon, who really symbolized the toughness of a city and helped that team turn into a dynasty. And it looks like this is now the end, certainly of his time in New England and his time in the NFL. Let the debate begin about whether Julian Edelman belongs in Canton, Ohio. To me, he does. We'll let the others decide. But Julian Edelman, obviously now released by the Patriots today, according to today's wire, and now expected to retire, according to Mike Reese.
Wow, Adam, I think what you said there was so poignant that he got the most out of his ability, the most out of his career. This is really interesting stuff. Let's bring in Marcus here. What do you think, Marcus, as you hear that Julian Edelman expected to retire?
Yeah, listen, we've been enamored with the conversation between Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and what's the Patriot way. Julian Edelman is the definition of the Patriot way as well. Unknown guys becoming stars and playing big roles is what New England has done for a long time. And he's one of those examples you point to as saying, this is the guy that defines the Patriot way. Hard-working, play through injury, tough. Shefty talked about the catch that he made. I think it's right up there with Tyree making his catch in the Super Bowl for the Giants. Julian Edelman has had a remarkable career. He was a guy that you had to plan for. You had to make sure you knew where he was because you knew he could tear you up out of that slot position. So, look, if this is it, kudos to him. He did his thing. He balled out. He is one of the definitions of the Patriot way that we've talked about. Unsung guys becoming household names, contributing to Super Bowls, and playing big roles in the success of a team over a number of years. Shout out to J.E. Go do your thing, man.
Yeah, I mean, one word for me, playoffs. I mean, this guy is responsible for some of the biggest moments in the postseason of the last decade of football, modern football history. Like, we can have the Hall of Fame debate another day, but in terms of telling the story of football, telling the story of these championship teams, those catches that Edelman came up with in key moments are so memorable. And also, you know, in telling the story of how the game has evolved, why we value slot receivers now the way we do, why nickel is the new base and you got to have a nickel corner defending that position. A lot of that is because of Julian Edelman, how he was used in New England. To me, he defines the Patriots dynasty. He always will, and really this was just a remarkable career.
Guys, my favorite Julian Edelman thing is that remember on that 2011 Super Bowl run when he played cornerback? And he was out there tackling people pretty well. So I love it. Congratulations to Julian Edelman. The breaking news here on NFL Live that he is expected to retire. We've got more coming your way on NFL Live. The Browns making a push for one of the biggest names